Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm back. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. I'm joined by Josh Mansfield, who held it down with me out of town. Josh, thanks for doing that, and it's so great to see you, my friend.
Yeah, you too. I got to be honest, though, hearing you say welcome to the Upshot, it's just like music to my ears because I don't have to say it anymore. So I'm definitely glad to have you back. How was your trip?
It was great. It was great. Amazing. I was just reflecting. I was actually on 3 different continents on my trip, all within a very small span of geographical space. I was in Istanbul and then Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. And so just a really nice trip in the Middle East and had a great time. Highly recommend the area to anybody who's interested, particularly if you're big into history. I mean, especially in Egypt. What a crazy place. You know, you're looking at the most beautifully preserved things from 4,000 years ago that you've ever seen. And really a very fascinating and intense place to visit.
Sounds neat. It definitely sounds like a bucket list trip.
A lot of fun. Nobody knew anything about disc golf. I will tell you that. Not a big disc golf universe. I did talk to somebody. No, I saw in the Amman airport in Jordan. I saw 2 guys with Innova disc golf bags.
Oh,
like little ones. Like I don't know if they had discs or what was going on. It was like 1 a.m. and I didn't feel like starting up a conversation, but I just want to point out that I saw that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm really curious.
Did anything happen while I was gone, Josh?
Nope, nothing. Nothing. All sorts of things happened, Charlie. We had a great time at LVC. Congratulations on your fantasy side. The picks. We did the same in picks. We talked about that a little bit. Yeah. But on the fantasy side, you had 2 wins between
couple
Calvin
of wins
Katrina,
to start the season.
Yeah, it's a nice
Katrina
start.
And Calvin on my squad. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it's a good start. You also did pick the winner of LVC though as Evelina, who missed the cut, and we had a good fun talking about that. So,
I mean, okay. Can I just give some takes real quick about LVC?
Please.
I just want to just dive in real quick. Didn't have a chance to talk about it at any point. Missed you on the rapid reacts, which was at like 3 a.m. where I was. So I had to skip out on that. But I do think it's a pretty interesting start to the year. Now, first of all, Calvin and Katrina winning is like basically not even that interesting to me. I mean, it's interesting, but it's like those are players that I am not surprised to see win at all.
They're multi-time winners at this event.
Multi-time winners. I picked Calvin to win in FPO. I had Katrina second. So like that is not surprising to see. But I think there's a lot of intrigue further down the board. So I'm not going to belabor the point here because I know we're all getting ready for Waco this coming weekend and it's time to move on. And we'll obviously preview all things Waco next week. But some notes that I have. Number 1, everyone is going to, and understandably so, talk about Kevin Jones failing to deliver once again in a final round. And at the end of the day, Kevin got to where he was playing the way that he was choosing to play. And for him to lose there, there's a couple spots where you think, well, maybe he could have pushed a little harder there. But a lot of the time, he was playing the same game plan that he had played in the previous rounds down the stretch of the tournament. The big problem for Kevin Jones is that he didn't make any of his Circle 2 putts. Mm-hmm. He went 0 for 5 in the final round. And really, if he just makes a couple putts, he wins his tournament. And so I actually think I come away feeling really positively about Kevin Jones after this event. And it is easy to say like, he can't close. But sometimes it's just like, so this wasn't like a bad luck disaster hole that took him out, where like, you remember Portland Open, right? Yeah. Oh my God, like total disaster. I mean, in some ways, you got a lot of good players and Calvin Heimberg birdies 12, 15, and 16, and Kevin Jones doesn't get a birdie after hole 11. You have to score, but at the end of the day, Kevin Jones had a kind of a bad season last year, and this feels like it bodes well for the future for him coming up this season. I think it's a similar story. You want to talk about Ezra or Kyle Klein, players who maybe weren't quite as good as we expected them to be a year ago after the years that they had in 2021. This feels like very positive signals about where they're headed. Because remember, Kyle Klein last year was terrible at Vegas.
Yes, that I completely agree with that one. Here's the question for you then. So, Kevin Jones, he obviously finishes second, but do you feel the same way about Anthony Barella, who was in the lead for a couple of rounds and near the top going into the final round? Anthony Barella finishes in 8th. I mean, he has that cool stretch where he also gets 3 bogeys. Do you think this is something that Anthony Barella shakes off? Or is this kind of like classic AB? Dan and I had a good dispute over this one about how we felt about this.
I mean, look, the talent is very obvious and undeniable. But on the other hand, Anthony Barella, when the pressure ranches up the most, has never really delivered, ever. Well, not once. And that is where I'm concerned. And to see him come down the stretch, like he shot a 1 under in the final round. If he shoots a decent round, a 6 under, he's tied for the lead. Okay? So I find it a little frustrating, right? So Kevin Jones only shoots a 3 down. Some of that is because like he was pressing on 18, and so I don't really know if that's quite an accurate representation of his round. I don't know. Like, I give Kevin Jones more credit because we know that he's done it in the past. Anthony Barella hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't done anything yet. And a little bit snake bit with the hitting the spotter and going into the OB. I mean, that's tough. That's tough. I feel like I shouldn't use snake bit about AB, but I feel this. I mean, I've drafted him onto my fantasy team for a reason. I think that he has the opportunity to finally get over the hump. And we see it takes time for players sometimes to get over the hump. It took Eagle a long time to get over the hump of, being able to take a win when it was pressured late. And then he did it. Yep. And now, I mean, we've seen what he's been able to do since then. So, I feel like it's got to be frustrating for AB. And, you can't miss circle 1 putts down the stretch. He missed 2 of them in the back 9. And you have to be able to keep that momentum up. So it's definitely a little concerning because we've never really seen him rise to the occasion. But you keep putting yourself in these spots and eventually you're going to win one.
Over on the FPO side, you have Katrina Allen who wins. I said before the tournament was the easiest 5 or easiest. I think our website that has our picks is 3 points. So we'll have to go back and double check our scoring and make sure. But it was the easiest win of the season for me picking Katrina Allen, and I proved to be right by 4 strokes over Missy Gannon.
I was playing 4D chess and forgot that Evelina, basically made 0 progress putting wise. It is very disheartening as somebody who was hoping to see her have a big year. Like I feel like it's like full abandonment of Evelina as a pick for the foreseeable future. I mean, until she shows you that she can putt regularly, it is just impossible to think she can win. Katrina, this is just a set of courses that works great for her game. We know we were missing a couple of the top players here, but I think she could have won even if Kristen and Paige were in the field, to be honest with you. Elsewhere, look, like the Holland Handley hype is very real. How about that 7 straight birdies in the final round? Hannah looking like the more impressive European player to start the season. And look, I mean, I don't know. Like, you look at this top 5, I think the biggest surprise is probably that Missy Gannon is at number 2, given the, perceived distance disadvantage that she has. So, nothing too shocking for me here. Like, I go down the board and I'm like, yeah, okay, this all makes sense. Caroline Henderson, who the heck is that? Well, we're going to find out more a little bit later in the show.
The one other thing, Kona Montgomery finishing top 15 and has a really bad start to her round, right? And a bad finish. But despite that, is still tied for 15th, right? I mean, she was in 11th. It dropped 4 spots in the final round, but we were really excited to see her there. That one was big. But other than that, I mean, I agree with you. I think by rating and everything, a lot of this makes a lot of sense. Owen Scoggins shoots 6 under to jump 8 places to get into the top 10. The dog, man. Owen Doggins. She just doesn't quit. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting start to the year. Not quite the same fireworks as last year on the MPO side, but still, the big names showing up, playing well, and a little concerned about Simon, going to be honest, seeing not only not a great finish, but also maybe some like elbow injury concern stuff going on. I'm not surprised to see a slow start, and I'm going to reserve judgment on Simon until like May, to be honest.
Fair. Speaking of start to the season, we had another tournament this past weekend. The Memorial Championship took place. We have over on the MPO side, Gannon Burr takes it down in a 3-way playoff between Gannon, Aaron Gossage, and Anthony Barella. Ends up winning on the second hole of the playoff. On the FPO side, Owen Scoggins beats out Jennifer Allen by 10 strokes to win the Memorial.
Wow.
And like Jennifer Allen, Annika Steen, Natalie Ryan, Maria Oliva. This is not the deepest field. I mean, that's really where the depth kind of stops. But of those 5, for Owen Scoggins to win by 10 strokes over second place, and then, subsequently more, I mean, she beat Maria Oliva by 15 strokes at this event. That's Owen Scoggins just putting it away at the Memorial. There was no question on that one. That was a victory lap final round, if I ever did see one.
Crazy. Yeah. This is a cool tournament because it's one of the rare spots during the year where you have a lot of good players at an event that's not a Pro Tour event. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I feel like it's appropriate. I think some people are like, why isn't this a tournament on the Pro Tour? Trust me, you don't want that. You don't want to watch 4 rounds of live coverage from the Memorial. You just don't. Trust me. I was there. It wasn't great. But I think it's like a good spot on the calendar, and it's cool that Terry Miller goes and does his thing there. And, Gannon Burr, he's still here, folks. And no, I will just quick legal update. No movement yet on the Prodigy case. And there was initially a hearing scheduled for last Friday, but it was requested to be moved by Gannon Burr's legal team to this coming Friday. So no hearing yet on any kind of injunction or anything along those lines. And I remain convinced that the most likely outcome here is some kind of out-of-court settlement. But we will see. For now, things continue, and we should have an update next week.
Let's see. What else do we want to chat about, Charlie? Things that we missed. Oh, I've got to take a quick mulligan real quick before we change topics anymore.
Perfect.
Yes, I'll take a mulligan. When Dan and I were talking about the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships and the end of season awards, the Rookie of the Year will be determined by a 50-50 fan media vote, but the Player of the Year is a 50% tour card holder vote, 50% media vote. So it'll be among peers that determine the Player of the Year. I think that is much more appropriate than a fan vote because while pros may be subject somewhat to different biases, whether it be recency bias that we saw with the Missy Gannon issue, or just they have friends who are on tour, and that's going to play a role in it for sure. I also think that a lot of pros are going to recognize the kind of objectivity around how you kind of determine Player of the Year. And while I think it'll make it a little bit more interesting with like the Paul McBeth, Ricky Wysocki discussion at the end of the year, for example, it's not going to be so outlandish as to say, oh yeah, well, Simon wins Player of the Year, even though he had no majors, unlike Paul, and less Elite Series than Ricky, right? It's like, there's no case where Simon wins Player of the Year. In a fan vote and media vote, I would not be shocked if Simon wins Player of the Year. So I think this is a much more appropriate standard. And, I got to take the mulligan because I did misspeak and say it was 50-50 fan.
Yeah, and I will give you some credit, Josh. The article up on Ultra World Disc Golf had the error, and that caused you to make the error. So that's on the editors. So apologies for that. And yes, it is. So I agree, but I agree with everything you said. I think the fans should have no vote in a Player of the Year contest. Sorry. Media is questionable enough as it is, but at least the media voters are paying a lot of attention and hopefully able to be objective and make reasonable choices. So I think we should go ahead and take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Caroline Henderson, brand new to tour, has been a PDGA member since just 2021, finished top 10 at the Las Vegas Challenge. So we'll talk to Caroline next, right here on The Upshot.
Pound's the best of the best. It's the quality, the craftsmanship, the vision for what a bag could be. Let's start from the beginning. I didn't choose Pound, I chose Levi. I trusted Levi to make the best bag possible.
He's always trying to innovate. He wants it to be perfect. And I think he's the kind of guy that nothing's ever perfect.
I trust the product. I trust the people behind the product.
At this point, I don't think anyone's disputing that it's the best made bag.
Joining us now on The Upshot is Caroline Henderson, who just finished 9th at the Las Vegas Challenge, first stop of the year on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, but has only been playing disc golf since late 2020, became a PDGA member in 2021. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
So I guess... Oh, Josh is so eager to ask
I think you know exactly what I think we were about to ask the same question.
No. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Late 2020, that makes you one of the COVID players.
Technically, yeah.
How is it that you found disc golf? What brought you to the sport? I mean, this is something that we've talked about for the past several years, and it's always a fascinating story to hear about the players who kind of joined during the pandemic.
Yeah, so one of my husband's friends is named Brody Smith, but it's not like the Brody Smith. So he Googled his name and found Brody's videos. And so it started with Ultimate, and then he found disc golf, and he was like, hey, CJ, who is my husband, was like, let's go try disc golf. And I went out with them, and I kind of walked the dogs, and they're like, you should play. And I'm like, I'm like the too, at that time, I was the too competitive type where it's not fun for anybody. And so I kind of started throwing it a little bit, and I was like, this is kind of fun. It's hard. I've never thrown a Frisbee before, in my entire life, not even a Walmart Frisbee. So it was a really big learning curve. So that's kind of how we got into it.
That's amazing. So how do you go from that, in never having thrown a Frisbee, let alone play disc golf, about 2 years ago, to now finishing top 10 at an Elite Series event? I mean, were you surprised to finish this high up the leaderboard?
Yes. It was not in our expectations to finish that high at all. We were just let's make cut. Why not? We really just wanted to see how I would compare. Because I've played against Holland and Kat Murch and Maria. I played against Maria more than probably anybody else, in my situation. So it was just a lot of practice and dedication.
So you make lead card on round 1, shooting even. Did you lead card or chase card? Chase card. Okay. That's PDGA number broke against you on that one. As your PDGA number is 171,555. Yeah. Definitely not one of those 4-digit ones. But so you end up on chase card. What is your feeling initially? I mean, you are with the likes of Missy Gannon, Owen Scoggins, and then is it Jennifer Allen on your card or Sarah Hokum? Jennifer Allen. What are you feeling at that point, seeing these people on your card, chase card at an Elite Series event?
I was excited because I hadn't had the chance to meet Missy before, and I was kind of excited to play with Jennifer Allen too. I at the time I wouldn't have admitted I was nervous because I've been filmed before and the cameras really didn't bother me. The only thing that kind of bothered me about it was my routine's a little long. And so I was a little self-conscious about it. And I was like, I'll speed it up. And I think that's kind of what threw me off on the first several holes, is I just wasn't sticking to what felt comfortable. But no, I was excited to play with everyone.
What, do you have an athletic background?
Yeah. So I started playing softball when I was 8, and I started playing select around 10, and I started pitching around 10. And so softball was my biggest sport. But in high school, I ran track as well. I ran the 100-meter hurdles, the 300 hurdles, and I ran the 1200.
Got it. So, I mean, if you're a pitcher from softball, you feel like those skills transfer to disc golf at least a little bit?
Oh, 100%. But I think it's definitely more with the forehand and specifically the snap, because like the majority of the forehand is a lot like the baseball throw. But the difference between like softball pitching snap and baseball pitching snap is you don't really pronate when you snap. And so like, you know, beginners, especially those who played baseball, they get a lot of that wobble and that roll is because they're not snapping like here, they're snapping here. You know what I mean? Like they're coming towards the outside of the wrist. And so I did that at first, but then we went out to the field and we're like, we need to figure out the forehand. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to pitch it. I mean, how different could it be? So I started from like an L position, which is like a drill we do for little ones. And I threw it like 360. And my husband was like, what in the world? How did you do that? I was like, dude, I don't know. And so then I just kind of was training pitching snap. And so that was like the big adjustment that, you know, took my forehand from 0 to hero.
Wow. So, you know, just looking at the stats, right, from the tournament, you were top 3 in circle 1 in regulation. You were one of the top players from tee to green. You know, on the courses at LVC, that suggests good power. Is that do you feel like you measure up to the tour level in terms of power and distance that you can throw?
Oh yeah, my forehand's definitely really elite. Like I would say it's one of the top distance forehands. My backhand still has a ways to go, but for what it is right now, I throw far.
So it looks like what you are registered right now for the whole slate. I mean, you've got everything for the next couple of months on your schedule all the way out through June. What was this your plan going into the season? What is your tour life like? Are you describe a little bit what that plan then to go on tour is?
Yeah. So, last year we started selling our house. We ended up selling it. We sold it in May. And so once we sold the house, we bought an RV and a dually. And so that will be our means of transportation, but it might have gotten hit when we were pulling it out of the person's lot. And so it's been in the shop. It wasn't super bad, but just everything, I guess, with there's still COVID back up. So it takes a really long time. And so right now we're in Airbnbs until we get it back, which should be in the next couple of weeks. So we might still do Airbnbs for the Texas swing, but after that it'll be RV.
So, okay, hang on, back up, because you sold the house in May. So have you been planning that you were like, I want to go on tour and play disc golf professionally since May of 2022?
Yes. So, it was well before that. So in April of 2021 was my first event. Yeah. So April 2021 was my first event, and I didn't do great, but I threw this random bomb. I mean, like I had no idea how to throw it. I mean, it just went so far, and all the dudes were like, what the heck? And he's like, don't give up. I think you can do this. And so we started watching coverage. My husband's like, there's no reason you can't do any of this. And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And so the intention was to make it to that goal to the goal of touring, because I'm not a person who can just do things halfway. Like I didn't want to just be an okay player. Like I wanted to be like really good. And so I wanted to be able to beat all my guy friends and stuff like that. So we were intending on touring since probably April of 2021.
Wow.
We just needed time. And so I wasn't going to go on until I was ready. Yeah.
How competitive sorry, one more thing, Josh.
No, you're fine.
How competitive of a softball player were you? Like, were you like a top high school player?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No, yeah. So I was so junior year is your recruitment years where you
Sure.
can actually talk to colleges, but like colleges were talking to my select coach my freshman and sophomore year of high school, because I've always played in divisions up. So if I was 16, I played in 18, or if I did play 16U tournaments, they were like A-level. So
Got
I was a very, very competitive softball player.
Did you play collegiate softball then?
I did not. I broke a vertebrae in my back my junior year. And so it took a year to heal. And I played on it so long, there was just so much damage muscularly and ligaments and stuff. And so after that, I picked softball back up, but it wasn't the same naturally, right? You know, I was out for a whole year. And so I was going to walk on at Texas Women's University. Once I started training for that, I realized I was like, this isn't for me anymore. This is okay. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I ended up getting a job teaching little girls how to pitch and hit. And so I think that's what accelerated my development, is because I have such a good background of like feel versus real and mechanics.
I want to ask you about that because that's very interesting. One of the things that I think is very lacking in disc golf in general is much understanding of the mechanics of throwing. Now, there are people who have YouTube, maybe you've watched some of it yourself, trying to learn how to throw better. Do you feel like there's an opportunity to take your knowledge, mechanical knowledge of throwing from softball, and help to bring that to disc golf in some way, especially since you're teaching it?
Oh, absolutely. I do intend on, as I get established on the tour during the off season, starting to kind of do lessons and stuff like that, just kind of dabbling into it. But yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity because like, especially with like putting and backhand. So you watch the videos, but it's not the same. You know, they tell you where to be, but it doesn't give you that feel. And so I'm more of like, I've always taught like how to feel it. So I've gotten little kids who didn't have too much of an athletic ability or background to get them to do what I wanted them to do, because I know what it feels like.
So I have to ask the big thing. Sorry, Josh, I feel like I keep cutting you off.
Nope, you're good. Keep going. Bad. I think there's a delay. So
yeah, the stats, you know, as good as they were for your driving, putting a little bit weak. Is that an area of your game that is yet to kind of get to where you want it to be?
Yes, I think that's just because, yeah, it is that way. It's not like I haven't been practicing it. Like, it was one of the things I did take a while to start practicing, because my thought was, well, if I can't throw it on the green, then what's the point of being able to putt if I can't, you know, if I'm hitting trees all the time, you know, which I don't think was the best way to look at it. But I did spend a lot of time over the off season. Part of the Vegas putting issues was everything was like not an easy putt. Like, even like you either had the wind, or if you knew it hit the cage, it was going to roll down. And so I think that got to me a little bit more than it should have, because the drives were like, I'll bust this out. This isn't a problem. Like, I can do this. But putting was that way. But I did figure out what the problem was. And then I didn't get that from a YouTube video. It was just me going out and thinking.
So,
but it was
when you look, and I want to backtrack just a tiny bit on terms of the coaching and the lessons. When you you said that you've watched some YouTube videos, you've watched other coaches or players who give tutorials and stuff. Who do you think is the best resource right now for learning, anything? We've talked about Holland Hanley before, and but for coming from you, who's gone from first-time player to top 10 finisher on the Pro Tour in 2 years. Who do you think is the best resource at kind of identifying some of those mechanics and really teaching the foundations of disc golf?
Yeah, absolutely. Holland does have fantastic tips, but I like to watch overthrows. Like, I didn't watch a ton of them to start with, but it was overthrows. Otherwise, I've always looked at like slow-mo of people's mechanics, like Paul, Ricky, Drew Gibson. Yeah, but I like overthrow because they kind of bring it more towards the real versus feel kind of concept, instead of just you got to get here and then you got to get here.
Yeah, so you've been thinking about wanting to go on tour since 2021, which is like that's kind of mind blowing when you think about it. Like the opportunity to go out there and think that you're going to be competitive enough to make it work, and like live on the road and do all of that. Obviously, this is a very good start to come out and finish top 10. What kinds of expectations do you have for this year? I mean, your rating, by the way, which I haven't mentioned yet, is 902 at the moment. It's been going up very quickly, of course.
Very quickly, yeah.
So I'm sure you're going to end the year much higher than that. But a lot of people, when we ask them this question, they say, "Oh, I want to win a Pro Tour event. I want a major. I want to win the World Championships." Those probably are like a little bit beyond the level of expectation that maybe you would have. So, what are you hoping to achieve?
I just want to, my biggest thing is just like learning from my mistakes. Like round 2, the one where I was filmed, I made so many disc choice mistakes. It's like, so instead of like going down a notch, I was going down like 2 notches. And so things were flipping or things were too stable. And so like, that's what, for example, I take away from that tournament. But as the year goes on, I do want to see like a better putting percentages. And I just want to see a little bit more consistency with my like drives, in the way they feel, because even though they might come out okay, sometimes they don't feel okay. So my goal is just to keep building on my skills, and then next year maybe I'll decide, maybe I want to try to win something like that. But I would like to stay in the top 25 this year.
So last year I was looking through your previous PDGA results, and I found that you played one Pro Tour affiliated event. It was a silver event last year, and it was the Mid-America Open. You finished 26th, which was 43 strokes behind Sarah Hokum, the eventual winner.
That was bad.
you were in your defense 865 rated at the time, right? So you jumped almost 50 points. I guess my question is, and I hear this, we hear this a lot from newer players and younger players on tour who say, I'm doing this for X number of years, and then I'm reevaluating, and then I'm going to look. But if you've been saying this is something I'm going to do since 2021, and I mean, how long are you doing this? What's your plan on this? Are you committing like, I'm going to do this until I'm good enough and successful? Is it, we're going to do this for 3 years and then reevaluate? Like what do you see as that long-term plan there?
I'll probably go until my body doesn't want to do it anymore, honestly.
So you must love disc golf then. I mean, that's understated.
I wish I found it when I was like 12, because this is such a cool sport, such a rewarding sport.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun for sure. What percentage of drives are you throwing forehand right now?
It's really if the shot calls for it. If the shot calls for it, or if my backhand's not working that day. Because I'm pretty 50-50. Like I can look at a hole, and if it's a backhand hole, I'm going to throw. I'm not going to force anything that doesn't work.
What's your distance right now on both backhand and forehand? Like let's call it an average drive, maybe not your maximum potential.
Average, I think for both is about 360, 375.
Got it. So pretty equal on both sides.
Sometimes I'll look at a wide open hole and I'll think, my backhand might go 360. I was like, I think I can get the forehand like 375.
Wow. Got it. What was the most interesting thing to you about playing at LVC and your first Elite Series?
How chill everything was. Like, I know that's everyone was so nice. Like everyone I've met, like Missy was nice. Jennifer Allen was unbelievably nice. Like that's not how I thought these people were going to be. Also how professional it was. Cause I've only ever been to like A tiers, which, it's a casual-ish professional sort of, but like it was kind of neat to see that environment.
I know you said that, this year it's top 25, but when you're looking forward at the schedule coming up, if there was one event that you feel like you have the best chance to succeed at, what event would that be? Or was the answer LVC?
Oh, goodness gracious. I really haven't looked at it like that. I would think I would do better in courses that were more similar to Texas, which have like hard pans or a little bit more open. We sort of have woods golf, nothing that was close to us that we could practice a whole bunch. So I would think the weaker parts would be woods golf and my strongest would be open courses. Just because I'm really good at putting my drives, like my max drives, where I want them. It's very rare that I have a mistake, and it was probably a disc joist mistake.
Oh, interesting. So you feel like your accuracy is maybe your best skill right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What
From all distances.
What are you already in Waco practicing?
Yep.
How are you feeling about the course and your chances this weekend?
So I've played this course before. I played it in January at a little tournament, but we played from the men's tees with men's pars. So I was kind of excited to get to the females tees with females pars. And I scored really well in all my practice rounds. And so I think I have a good chance of birdieing those, like the open holes. And I think I can, either save par or get birdies on the wooded holes. There's only a couple that are naturally pretty rough. And that's, I can't remember the number, but it's the first wooded hole you get to after you start. I think it's like hole 4 or 5 or something.
Yeah, the beginning of that middle stretch.
Yeah, it's those that are a little sketchy for anybody, because you could be an inch off and it just kicks out into the woods. It's like, that wasn't 100% your fault. Like,
right.
Man, the delay right now, I don't know why. It's not usually this bad. I wanted to ask real fast about the scores. Have you, do you have a range where you feel like your scores are at right now on the Waco course?
I think I could do, if I keep the wooded parts reasonable, I think I should be able to shoot anywhere between 2 to 4, which I think is appropriate. Or even I shot one practice round at 9, and that was in January. I know, it's when putting was good. I couldn't miss a gap. I doubt that's what it's going to be this week.
For reference, the winning score last year, Valerie Mondojano shot 9 under par total. I think it was pretty windy last year, if I remember right. But yeah. Okay, interesting. I just wanted to get a reference of where you're feeling. So go ahead, Charlie, with your other question.
I was just going to ask, are you sponsored yet?
I'm sponsored by a few retailers, one being Hooligan, which is associated with Disc Barn. The second retailer is Par4. They were actually my first sponsor in 2021. And my last one is Legit Disc Golf, which is an apparel company, but they do sell Frisbees.
Are you in the market for a manufacturing sponsor? Or have you started to try to reach out to anybody about that?
Yeah, so I wasn't intending on reaching out to anybody this year. If anything, I was going to let them come to me, not in an arrogant kind of way. I just didn't want to change my whole bag for not a lot of money. You know what I mean? If I didn't play well, I wasn't going to reach out to Discraft and they were just going to give me 50 Frisbees and a t-shirt. I didn't want to do that. And so even before Vegas started, Prodigy reached out to me because they were on a hole in front of me and they're like, "You throw your forehands really far. We should talk." And then Jennifer Allen was encouraging with Innova after the tournament. Mid-tournament was Lone Star, and then Dynamic Disc was after the tournament.
Oh, wow.
I know. And apparently Discraft was interested. They were just waiting. But I haven't heard from them, which is okay. I get it.
So what's your plan? Are you going to be willing to make a bag change mid-season, or you want to wait until the end of the year?
Yeah, so the people I've been talking to, they were going to give me, some of them were either the minimum was 3 months and some of the max was the whole year. And so I'm kind of digging the whole year thing because they may not have a Frisbee that I need in my bag, specifically my nukes. If they don't have anything, I can throw my nuke out, or even my Graces. I don't want to change until I get those discs. So it was kind of nice.
What would be kind of the minimum expectation if you were to make that switch? Let's say a manufacturer came and said, "We'll give you 3 months to swap over your bag." What would be some of the things that you would want out of that contract in order to make that switch?
I want to be paid decently well, just because I'm working with GK Pro and media stuff. And so I might not be worth, a lot now, but as the year progresses, I'm going to be worth a lot. So I don't want to be paid $12,000 and they're getting tons of media exposure. I don't think that's super fair. And so one of the big things I told them is, we can set this about, maybe $2,000 a month for now. And then once December rolls around and the season's over, I want to renegotiate, or you can match what other people are offering, or I need a player option.
Wow. I mean, you're really coming all in here and like setting the terms. I think it's amazing. Like, do you think you have a ceiling to be a champion level player on tour?
100%. I think my backhand and my forehand, especially my forehand so far, and even my upshots have gotten me to that point. I just need to my putting needs to, kind of get up to that level. Cause round one, I probably lost like 6 strokes to C1 putting. And that's pretty consistent through the whole tournament. So like I would have been hanging up there with Holland and all them. Like I just made my 18 footers. I mean, that's kind of how ridiculous it was.
It's a tough game.
Has your putt been feeling better at Waco than your practice?
Yes. Yeah, all my practice rounds, because we fixed like one thing, and it was like we're starting the disc a little higher, and apparently I forgot what the term is, but when you bring it down to your waistband, there's a term for that, and you're supposed to kind of like hang go, right? I was always like that, right? It was so jerky, and I think that was the nerves. But that's what I worked on as soon as LVC was done, that's what I've been working on. And so it's been really helpful because at least I'm hitting the basket from like 30 feet and not just airballing from 18. So at least I'm hitting the basket, but I'm making a ton more.
If you could take a skill from any player on tour, what skill would you take and from who?
I'd either take Missy or Owens putting. That's all I need.
That's what my guess would have been, was the Owen putting.
Yes.
Well, Caroline, thanks so much for coming on. What an amazing story to start the year, and good luck out there this season. And it sounds like, so one other thing, what are you doing for GK Pro? You're going to be doing commentary?
No, not really. I'll be present on some skins, but they're kind of doing, have you seen the YouTube videos with the people who like post a pull-up bar outside of gyms? And like, I'll give you $1 for every pull-up you can do. We're basically doing like little things like that, but it's not, where I can make disc golfers do pull-ups, but it's going to be stuff like that. They're really helping me out with my YouTube channel. And so we're focusing on YouTube and shorts. And so it'll be like vlogs and the life, some practice rounds. And the thing we're working on right now is I'm going to do like a voiceover commentary thing for my round 2 filmed with Ace Red Pro, just because there was so much to talk about. And I think people will be interested in seeing why I didn't perform so well.
Wow. You've seemed like you've already figured it all out, and you've literally played only one Elite Series event. So good luck, and we'll be excited to follow your. Sorry, say that again.
Oh, sorry. I said it's been a lot. We haven't had much free time since Vegas because we've had to sit and figure all this stuff out like we had to.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm sure we will hear from you more, and we look forward to having you on the show again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Caroline Henderson with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. So we just talked to Caroline Henderson, Josh, who wasn't playing the sport in the middle of 2020, picked it up at the end of the year. By the middle of 2021, had decided that she was going to go on tour professionally, sold the house in May 2022, and is now on tour and has already finished top 10 at the first ever Elite Series event at which she has played. Is going to be doing GK Pro media stuff, believes that she will have a sponsor lined up within the next few months. This is crazy.
For reference, she sold her house when she was 861 rated.
Wow.
Like, I don't know if I've ever heard a story like this ever in disc golf. I mean, this is incredible.
It's really incredible. I mean, we've seen some other players come from sports backgrounds other than disc golf, pick it up in, the last couple of years and end up going on tour. Obviously, you think about Ella Hansen, you think about Olin Handley, who profile similarly in some ways to Caroline in that, powerful throwers who are, up and coming new players who have not played much in the past. And wow, I mean, I feel like if you listen to that interview, you have to feel like she has the potential to be a really strong player. I mean, I don't see why not. You're talking about somebody who's barely been playing, who already has, in her own words, elite accuracy and elite forehand power and very considerable backhand power, while also feeling like there's a lot more to do on that front. And like, top 10 at the first turn. I can't believe what I'm hearing right now. I feel like FPO is going to be a completely different game in 5 years.
I think
like this is not how this is supposed to happen.
It's crazy to me as well. Like for her to say, I have clear deficiencies in my putting. I'm not a strong putter yet. I'm glad I'm hitting the basket now instead of airballing. And then for her still to say, yeah, I could take top 25 on the Pro Tour. I think that's a good goal for me. And I could be the number one competitor in the world in a few years. Like that, it's a level of confidence with commitment and talent that it's unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen something like this before.
It's unbelievable. I feel like it doesn't seem insane to me that she's going to be a household name by the end of the year, especially if she's doing media stuff. And a great interview.
Well, and a great interview. Yes. And imagine a world where she is from Texas, right? We're about to go into the Texas swing. If she has that kind of power if she can stay clean in the woods at Waco, and we'll talk a little bit more about the course on Thursday. But if she can stay just like relatively clean in the woods, why couldn't she replicate this at Waco?
Josh, over under.
No.
0.5 podiums for Caroline Henderson on the Elite Series in 2022 or 2023. Sorry,
man, that's tough. I'm gonna say under.
Okay.
I'm gonna take the under.
All right.
Yeah. Are you? You're taking the over then? We'll put it in.
Naturally, I must take the over.
All right. Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if this was just like a thought experiment, right? One of those where we're just playing it out. No, this is.
If the words over under are spoken, it is not a thought experiment.
It is right.
It is written in blood.
Wow. Charlie. One of the things you highlighted when we were just kind of in break was about her sports background and the mechanics and how like promising you thought that was for her and for disc golf in general.
Well, I mean, she talked about a couple of different things, right? She talked about being a visual learner, basically, with mechanical things, and then feeling how. But this is the stuff that a natural athlete talks about. They're like, oh, it's supposed to feel like that, and then they can do it. We all wish we could do those kinds of things, but like the people who really separate themselves as athletes are the ones who can really they're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. And then they can just execute it. And like, clearly she has the ability to do that kind of, that combination of muscle memory and hand-eye coordination. She's talking about, I can just place my drive where I want. And rarely am I making a mistake with my throw. It's usually because I picked the wrong disc. I mean, that's kind of a crazy thing to hear from somebody who's barely been playing. So to me, these are the kinds of things that it speaks to. It's like, we have somebody here who's obviously very driven, already clearly extremely motivated to do well, and has been thinking about getting to this point for over a year and a half to go on tour. They sold their house. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. And has the raw skill, right? The raw ability to throw a 375-foot forehand. I mean, Josh, can you throw a 375-foot forehand?
No,
me neither. I think most probably can.
My elbow would my arm would detach at the elbow if I tried to throw a 375-foot forehand.
Fascinating story. And you kind of wonder, it's like somebody like that, what if she doesn't get hurt and stays in softball land? Like, now I feel like I have to Google and see like how good was she at softball. Anyway, really very interesting. So, it's going to be a story to watch. I was not expecting this to be as interesting as it was. I have to be honest.
When I scheduled this interview, we tried to do with Caroline and then Zach Arlinghouse, who we talked a little bit about on the show. And that's what I wanted to do with Dan on Thursday's show. And Caroline's like, sorry, I'm not available till Tuesday. And I'm like, all right, that's all right. And like, but the news cycle has passed a little bit, right? Lots of people on Discord were asking who Caroline Henderson is. And I just had to be very honest that I had not heard of Caroline Henderson ever. And then, we get her for the interview and I'm like, okay, like LVC's passed. She's only 900 rated, but we're going to the Texas swing. She could do well. And this turned out to be just one of the most fascinating stories that we have had on the Upshot. And I'm just so excited for Caroline. And the other thing, though, that I want to highlight, how often have we said, if professional athletes had the incentive to come over to disc golf,
yep,
they could completely change what we think is possible in the sport. And I mean, here's the proof, right? She was a high school softball player, a competitive high school softball player. Didn't even play collegiate softball. I mean, due to an injury, of course, but a competitive high school softball player comes in and within 2.5 years has a forehand better than probably 95% of the FPO side. And I mean, how many MPO players have a 375 forehand? Half?
Not
maybe?
everybody. Not everybody.
Not everybody. Right? Like comes in with an elite level FPO forehand and from a high school softball player. What happens when a USA national women's softball pitcher decides picks up the sport of disc golf and is like, oh, wow, I can throw 500 feet with a disc.
That's what I'm saying.
I have a forehand.
That's what I'm saying. The money is there now for people who want to take that chance to get in now. And that's why I'm saying FPO is going to look completely different in 5 years. Wild. Anyway, want to talk about one other quick thing before we sign off today. In Minnesota, a state court has ruled against USA Powerlifting in a case that was brought by a transgender woman who was denied the ability to compete in the women's division of powerlifting. And after like a 2-year legal battle, circuit court in or like the first level state court in Minnesota ruled that USA Powerlifting was discriminating against this person, and that they had to immediately change their rules and allow transgender women to compete. So that has happened. This is all from the last few days. USA Powerlifting will now, at least for now, pending further legal challenges, and I'm sure this will get appealed, is going to be allowing transgender women to compete in the women's division. Obviously, this is of interest for disc golf because of the Natalie Ryan case. So the one quick note, the Natalie Ryan case was filed in California, but it was filed in federal court. So this is not really apples to apples, but it is worth noting. I haven't really had a chance to look through the actual legal ruling and what the judge said and why they made the decision that they did. But I do think that this is very much worth paying attention to. I think there's a very good chance that Natalie Ryan is going to, assuming this goes to trial and goes through the whole process, which is certainly not a guarantee, that Natalie Ryan may well win, and the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour will have to allow her and other transgender women to compete in FPO. So this is just something to keep an eye on. The legal matter is very much unsettled in the United States right now on this topic, but this is a big win for the transgender community in the sports department in Minnesota, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in disc golf. As I've said this before, I think that this Natalie Ryan story could end up becoming national news.
Yeah, I wish I understood better the inner workings between, because I understand, Natalie's filed in federal court versus the state court. Can that be used as precedent or case law? Are they going to use examples from this? I don't think so, but I just don't know enough about legal workings to know what this signifies for the Natalie Ryan case.
Well, I think what it signals to me is that you have a judge who's looking at this situation that is very similar to what's happening in disc golf and saying that this is discriminatory. And, sort of regardless of, like, I don't know, Minnesota's laws are different than federal laws, but California seems to be a promising venue in my mind for finding a judge who is going to look upon this in a way that is favorable to transgender women. The question is, does the PDGA and the Pro Tour even want to go through all of this and go to court for years? Do they have the money to do that? Do they want to go through with that? Like, are they so committed to this that they want to go to the mat and have to go through a long, expensive trial? I'm not clear about that. I think it's very possible that what we're going to see is that they allow Natalie Ryan, who is sort of for now is the sort of the only transgender female player competing at the highest level in FPO that this is relevant for. But I think they may end up letting her play and finding other ways to work around the sort of fairness question by, extending payouts deeper, or sort of just paying Natalie or others the money that they would earn for that spot, but then paying the next person the same amount, and sort of extending the leaderboard down. I don't know, but an interesting conversation.
It is indeed. Just waiting to see what else plays out in the Natalie Ryan case.
More to come on that in future weeks. So that is going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with you on Thursday to preview Waco, the second stop on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And Josh, as much as you want to say that it's fluky and random, the stats say it's not. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday. All
right. Because I have different numbers that I.
Oh, you have your own numbers. Josh,
I do. I ran numbers. I've got numbers.
All right. We'll be back with you on Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tell a friend who might like a disc golf podcast about the Upshot, as we're always trying to grow the show. Check us out on YouTube if you're a listener over on your favorite podcasting app. And for Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on the Upshot.